Welcome to the RYSE Movement podcast, a place where men just like you learn to raise your standards everywhere. So sit back, grab a pen and a pad, and let's get to work. Before we get into the episode, just know that this one has a disclaimer for self-harm, depression, anxiety, suicide, and domestic violence. If you or anyone else is suffering from any of the above, please seek out and get help as soon as possible. Just know that you're not alone and you don't have to do this by yourself. Please sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the RYSE Movement podcast. I'm Dave Kerestesi, the founder and coach. Today, in this episode, we're going to be diving into my story. Who am I and what have all the events that have happened in my life led up to now, led up to this point? So I grew up in the 90s as a normal Australian kid. I had a few friends around me. We were all into skateboarding, BMX, video games, specifically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Resident Evil on the PlayStation. I loved punk music. I loved metal. I loved new metal. Listened to bands like Frenzo Rom, NoFX, Bad Religion. I remember being in my best friend's bedroom, playing his PlayStation, listening to his 3 CD stacker with the new NoFX album, Punk in Drublic, the Offspring, Ixnay on the Ombre, and I can't remember the album, but the Bad Religion album that came out the same sort of year. Life was good. Life was easy. It was fun. I was outdoors more often than not. It was so much fun. My parents, they just, it was basically like a open door policy. On the weekends, it was go out and play, experience. And I did that all the way, up until my teenage years where I started hanging out with girls and stuff like that. Still into the same music, started watching things like Dragon Ball Z, fell in love with Goku and Vegeta, found a lot of resemblance in Vegeta inside of myself. I was like, yeah, this dude's powerful, but he's also a bit of a victim. And I felt a little bit of a victim in my life as well. The first, part of victimization that I experienced in my life was New Year's Day, 1999. And my uncle, he's an alcoholic. And my cousin had just had her son. He was a couple of months old. He was asleep in bed. I'm out on the PlayStation playing Tekken 2. And my uncle, when he drinks vodka, he drinks it by the glass, and not mixed with anything, just straight vodka. And this day, I don't know what happened. I don't speak Hungarian. I speak little bits, but they started arguing. And then he starts pushing my cousin around, starts slapping her, starts screaming at her. And this is all whilst myself at maybe 9 years old, my mum and my younger sister, who was maybe 6, were all in the house, plus the baby. No one did anything. No one could do anything. The men were out of the house. And I had to sit back, terrified, screaming, crying, to get my uncle to stop hitting my cousin, to stop just being a drunk fuckwit. I carried with me the pain and the fear of that for a long time, to the point where any time where there was like yelling or calamity, fighting, anything like that, I would freeze and I would get extremely fearful. I remember being like in the school ground in 2001, year 7 of primary school, and seeing punch-ons happen and just be frozen in fear, just like terrified of what was happening, what I was experiencing, what I was witnessing, what I was feeling inside of myself just felt so foreign. It felt like, this shouldn't be happening, sort of thing. I demonized fighting for most of my life, even though I was, the youngest black belt in my federation of Taekwondo in Australia. Turns out it's not a very good federation of Taekwondo, non-contact and just lots of patterns and yelling and shit like that. And I just remember feeling so foreign around any kind of violence, any kind of abuse, anything that just, it was just raw human emotion I just hated. And then growing up, I learned really quickly throughout my teenage years, specifically around 15 years old, just how easy it was to manipulate people. I was a piece of shit for a long portion of my life. From sort of around 15 years old to maybe 25, 26, I just did what I wanted. I gaslit people. I was extremely manipulative. Like, things happened in my life that I just thought I was having fun. There was no consequences in my mind about manipulating people, about just treating people like pawns in this game that I was playing. You know, I'd play people off against one another. I'd gaslit people. And, you know, like, I was showing so many signs and symptoms of, like, narcissism. I was a huge narcissist. Everything was about appearance. Everything was about how good I was. Everything was about how good I looked, about my muscles, about my training, about fucking everything to do with that. I remember being 20 years old. I was getting ready for a bodybuilding show. I was about 6 weeks out from the show. So I was pretty lean at this point. We went out, the boys that I was living with, we went out for ladies' night because they wanted to go, I don't know, try and hook up or get some drinks or whatever. And we're in Sin City nightclub and there's a bunch of topless waiters around. And all the boys were like, hey Dave, you know, you got a better body than them, you're leaner than them, take your shirt off. Or at least that's the memory that I have, which could very well be a fabricated memory, because I remember having thoughts of thinking that I look better and I should probably take my shirt off and go stand up next to him. In recollection, that memory has to be 100% fabricated of my own delusions. Because why, unless you've got absolute dick riding friends that, you know, are the same as you, that are manipulative like you, that are just narcissists like you, would they say that to you? I actually considered jumping on stage with these, you know, professional topless waiters to go prove that I was better than them, but just because I was leaner than them, because I lifted weights. Like, that's such a fucking dickhead move. Holy shit. Here I sit at almost 34 years old, you know, 13 years later, and just like shaking my head at how much of a piece of crap I used to be. But I guess that's growth, that's maturity. You kind of look back in recollection and think, wow, I was young, naive, narcissistic, and an absolute dick. To be honest, like, I'm surprised I didn't get punched in the face more than I did. I'm very, very lucky that I didn't get bashed multiple times, just because of what I did to people and how I treated people and how I thought of myself and how I carried myself. It was disgusting is what it was. And then that same night, like I said earlier, around manipulating and specifically getting what I wanted from women, I remember just pointing at this girl. She was with a group of friends and was standing up in the VIP area, and I signaled for her to come over, like a piece of meat, and I just got what I wanted from her. I was like, hey, we're gonna kiss. And that was pretty much it. And it was on from there. And the boys were like, oh man, like you did that so easy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, like I get what I want from women. Like I was God's gift to women. Fucking hell. Around that same time, I was also the youngest store manager for McDonald's in our patch. Probably Queensland at the same time too. I got promoted to store manager at 20 years old. I was about to turn 21 a few months later. Got given basically the keys to the entire business at Westfield Helensvale Macca's in 2010 in June. I was taking over from another store manager who was just underperforming a little bit. And because I was basically creating a mutiny against my old store manager at the old store that I worked at, I did his role for him. I basically told him to his face that he was a shit store manager, that I was better than him, that I could do the business better than him, that I was just better than him, basically. Like I said, I was a piece of shit. And so like I was running his store for him. And then eventually I was dating one of the other managers and we fell out. I ended up breaking up with her and then started sleeping around and started boasting about it to the back area crew boys, because like I'm God's gift to women. She overheard exactly in vivid detail that I went into about one of my conquests, and she ran off crying. And basically what happened from there is I got kicked out of the store. I got taken to a different store from a different owner and got told, look, you've got potential to be a good store manager, to go far with this career. However, you need to pull your head in. And like everyone was furious at me that I would just, blatantly do that. I was talking to kids that were like 17, 18 years old, while here I was like 20 years old and acting like an absolute fuckwit. So then I moved to a different store and then got promoted. Got promoted really quickly because they were like, look, we've got a void to fill. This store manager's not doing the job. We need someone to step in, new blood, new insight, you know, someone that's fresh and hungry. So I went in, I did exactly the job they told us. They said, fix profitability, fix the QCS rating, make sure that that stays 0 with the secret shopper, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, main thing, fix profitability. You're great with systems, you're great with food costs, you're great with profitability. Do what you need to do to be able to make this store profitable. So I did exactly that. The results tumbled over the biggest part of the year, so over the December month, where the P&L happens to be a lot easier to get better results with, just because the higher volume of sales makes it a lot easier to balance everything out in the business. So I did exactly that. I remember my profitability for, not to go too specifics because I don't want to, you know, dive in and open myself up for any ramifications. However, the profitability increased by about 4.5% in that month. I did really, really well, really, really well. But it was the Dave show. It was, look how fucking good I am at everything that I can do. Look at me, validate me, approve of me. And I basically just made it well known that it was the Dave show. I was the one who did it all. Then the 2011 Brisbane floods happened. I caught wind that at the distribution centre for all the McDonald's food up at McKee in Brisbane, they were getting flooded. And I knew I had a truck on the way with like all of my stock for that week, or at least one of the deliveries for that week. So then catching wind of this, I manipulated other store managers and other stores into giving me extra stuff, because I said, hey, there's a problem in Brisbane, don't know what's happening yet. I need stock and our delivery is not going to get here. We're really, really busy, blah, 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 blah. I manipulated other people into giving me what I needed. And then I kept my store afloat. I kept my store open because look how fucking good I am. Look at all the things that I can do. Please validate and approve of me. And so that was 2011. And then I remember thinking from my store owner and my supervisor, why didn't I get a bonus? Why didn't I get any like recognition or anything like that for keeping my store open and, you know, continually making money, continually making profit, when there was chaos and calamity and hardship and heartache and, you know, loss of lives and all these sorts of things that were happening? I was like, why not me? Like, look how fucking good I am. And then I ended up losing that position because I was a dick, because I was just the wrong person for the job, because they told me one thing, fix profitability, and that's all I cared in my head. As a store manager, you should be, I guess, across the board, competent to be able to do all the systems, which I was, except you need to have humility and understanding about human beings. And at that time, I had zero empathy. It was all about me. Look how good I am. Look at how good my store is. Look how good my results are. My P&L, my this, my that. Everything was about me and how good I was. So I lost that position. And ultimately, the reason when I got into management in the first place was to be able to earn more money so that I could learn the business, so that I could learn systems and stuff like that, because ultimately I wanted to run my personal training business. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, instead of having responsibility with being a store manager, being a 2RC, I'm going to study my PT certs like I planned on doing 3 years prior. So that's what I did. I said, okay, enough with McDonald's, that chapter's done. That's going to be able to finance everything so that I can start my personal training business, do my studies, so on and so forth, and then get the ball rolling that way. In that time where I was studying, I was still working, still doing a 40-hour week, plus studying at HPC, getting my certs done. I was in a relationship at the time, but that relationship was falling apart before it even got together. You know, she was a girl from Townsville, another Macca's person. She moved down here to be with me, and I just gaslit the shit out of her. Treated her like absolute crap. She was such a beautiful girl, and like, yeah, she had her problems, as we all do, but you know, the things that I put her through and how I treated her was just, it was horrid. It was absolutely horrid. I just made her feel so much less than what she actually was. So inevitably we broke up, and I actually remember being really controlling with her. She tried to leave the house when she was breaking up with me, and I said like, no, we can work on this, and I was trying to fix it. And I remember taking her keys out of her hand to go, no, like, you need to be here. I remember like hugging her and saying, no, we need to do this, we need to fix this. And then she looked at me and said, "Stop it, you're being abusive." And that was the first time I'd ever heard of anything to do with that. I was like, wow, holy shit, like I'm my uncle, I'm all these other fucking degenerate men in my family. So that relationship imploded around the same time that I started my personal training business. And then because I was a single, attractive, fit, lean, young personal trainer on the Gold Coast, you can only guess what happened next. I started going back into the old ways. I started falling back into the old patterns of being a piece of shit, manipulating females, getting exactly what I wanted because I could not be alone. There was this thing from, I don't know how young I was, where I started having sex or started at least hooking up with girls where I couldn't be alone. The amount of negative thoughts and emotion in my mind and in my body when I was alone, when I had downtime, was huge. I could not be alone. So I had to make sure that I was self-medicating through either sex or alcohol or even just the pursuit of women. Because if I was doing something that took me away from being, I don't know, quiet and alone, then I would be okay. I would be completely okay if I was, I guess, polluting and poisoning someone else just because I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to feel vulnerable. I didn't want to feel anxious. I didn't want to sit with the thoughts in my head of you're a failure, you're a piece of shit, and you know, all these things that I used to think. And then I met the mother of my daughter, my oldest daughter. End of 2012, met this woman, you know, same interests. Like we both had all the Scrubs DVDs because we were both obsessed with Scrubs. I thought, you know, holy shit, like, you know, this is the woman of my dreams. She's a brand new personal trainer to the industry. She's fit, she's healthy, you know, all these things. So we got together. Honeymoon period, it died really fucking quickly. Like things became toxic really fast. She was just an unhealed individual that was the exact same thing that I was. She was a perfect mirror image of me. She was manipulative, vindictive. She used to gaslight me constantly, and I got exactly what I deserved. And so I was planning on moving out because, you know, two very common people living together, they're, you know, hot and heavy and explosive, and I was like, I can't deal with this. You know, this woman is crazy. That's one thing that I used to say about every ex of mine. They're crazy. The reason why they acted crazy was because of me, was because I gaslit the shit out of them, because I manipulated them, because I just treated them like trash. I treated them basically like sex objects. And then so with this one, the honeymoon period ended, and then I was planning on moving out. I had my ducks in a row to be able to, you know, run again, and found out she was pregnant. This was after she told me she can't have kids. So, you know, throw caution to the wind, no worries about it, no protection, no nothing, no, you know, yeah. And then next minute she's pregnant. The moment she became pregnant, that's where the abuse started. That's where the abuse started. All of a sudden, it became my fault. It became me being the piece of shit. And she would say things like, yeah, well, you have to do this because if you don't, I'm never going to let you see your kids. She would get financially controlling, like time controlling. She alienated me from my friends, from my family. I could only go to and from work. If I was going to the gym, I'd have to take her. I couldn't have any alone time, couldn't have any hobbies, couldn't play Xbox. I couldn't do anything that I wanted to do. Everything had to be in and around her. Which, fair enough, you know. When you're in a loving relationship and you're involved in having a child, you make certain sacrifices and you spend a lot of extra time with your partner. I was planning on leaving her like 2 days before she told me she was pregnant. So I had to reconcile with all of this. At the same time, I wasn't happy. I didn't want to have this baby. Things in my life, like I was young. I was 24 years old and I was not ready to be a dad. I'd always said since I was about 12 years old that the best thing I'll ever do in my life is be a father. But at that point in my life, I was not ready. I was excited to have a child and I put on a strong, brave mask that I was ready for this, but I wasn't. In hindsight, you know, like this is 10 years ago now, there's no way in hell that I was ready. I was barely ready when my youngest daughter was born in 2017. So pregnancy progresses. We move out of the small apartment that we're in. We're now staying with my with my mum and grandmother, trying to find a place because she had had like a bad credit rating or whatever. She was on the TICA blacklist. And so, you know, another red flag that I should have paid attention to, but didn't. We struggled. It was my fault. She blamed me for everything, called me a piece of shit, started getting slap happy, started getting physical. Things turned just more and more just vicious and vindictive and painful. That's where she started sexually abusing me as well, where not to the point where she would like force me to get an erection so she could get hard or anything like that. That came later, but it was more that if I finished too early, she would call me a piece of shit and roll over, grab a vibrator out, and then stare at me in the eyes and kind of like make it my fault that she didn't get to have an orgasm, that she didn't get to, you know, experience what she wanted to. And then like when she finished, she'd be go, oh, thank God I've got this thing because you're useless. Just, you know, just one shot after another to my manhood, saying that I'm less than. That quickly built into, like I said earlier, with the negative thoughts in my head around being a failure. I just kept saying to myself, well, I'm a failure. I'm a failure at everything I do. I'm going to be a failure as a father. I'm a failure as a personal trainer. I'm a failure as a man. What the fuck is the point of being here? And a bit of depression started setting in, and I just started questioning my self-worth. I was like, why bother? Why bother? Like, nothing's going to matter. Had the baby, and she is gorgeous. She's the absolute just apple of my eye. She's purpose. Abuse kept going. She wanted to get into a bodybuilding show straight after having the baby. I wanted happy wife, happy life, so I just put everything on the back burner. Barely see my friends, barely see my family. There's only a certain time of day that the family can come over and, you know, see the baby. Abuse is still happening. I'm still a piece of shit. She still keeps, you know, hitting me and all the rest of the things. Same thing with the sexual abuse, keeps, you know, telling me I'm a piece of shit for not being able to make her finish. Financially, she starts manipulating me, saying that the money has to be spent on her or on the baby. If not, she'll leave me, never let me see my kid again. Yeah, that was heavy. Everything culminated at the end of 2014. I found myself in a bit of a depression, actually a lot of depression. I was having daily panic attacks. I was not well, and I was looking for a way out. I remember everything leading up to this point where I wrote a suicide note. I put it at the base of a chair. I tied my noose, and I was ready to end it all. The suicide note was just a giant fuck you. It was just so much victim inside of it. Like, this is all your fault. This is on you. My death is on you. Like, you know, sucked in. You have to live like this for the rest of your life. Like, fuck you. I was so done. And then I remember hearing my daughter cry. I'm standing on this chair. I've got noose in my hand. I'm about to kick the chair out from underneath me. And I hear her cry. And I had this moment of like divine clarity and peace, where I put everything down, put everything away, made it look like nothing had ever happened. I went inside, picked up my daughter, consoled her, cried my absolute eyes out. I refound purpose. I refound my meaning of life. In that moment of peace and clarity, I learnt so quickly that I'm here to help provide the life and the love that this beautiful little baby deserves. My daughter deserves to have a father. My daughter deserves to have a father that is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically here with her and for her. Everything that I did and every decision I made from that point on was for her. Because she deserves better. She deserves better than to be left with this woman who's going to probably abuse her, not be able to provide for her, Or at least that's the story that I had in my head. Who knows what would have happened. So I left. I broke up with her, went to move out. The day that I was moving out, I was packing all my stuff up. My little 9-month-old was on the floor in my bedroom, in the spare bedroom, whilst I was packing. I get confronted. She starts screaming at me, starts hitting me, starts fucking just absolutely going off because she's losing control. The narcissist manipulator is losing control. And then so it became very, very violent very quickly. My daughter's screaming now. I pick her up in my arms. I'm consoling her. I'm trying to fend my ex off, push her away, get her away from us, trying to keep my daughter safe. Go out to the living room, try to get her a bottle to settle her because it was about nap time. And then she lunges at me. But she doesn't just lunge at me. She lunges at me and pushes me out of the way because there was a knife on the bench. She lunges at the knife. And then I remember knocking her back and then just thinking, what the fuck? Like, how is she going for a weapon? Like, how am I about to get stabbed or slashed with my daughter in my arm? And I put my daughter to bed and come back out to the living room. She's ripping the place to shreds. She's, you know, just losing her mind. And then she does it again, lunges at me, but lunges at the knife again. I knock her back. And then she starts screaming at me, fuck you, you're never going to see your daughter again, blah, blah, blah. Runs into the bedroom, grabs her car keys, locks herself in the door, calls the cops, says that I bashed her, says that I'm not letting her leave the house. The cops come. I greet them out the front. Calm, cool, collected. Honestly, in a daze, in probably shock, because I can't believe what the fuck just happened. Everything happens the way that it happens. I'm cool, calm, and collected, in shock the whole time. And then they take me to the Southport Watch House. They take me. I'm bleeding on my arm, bleeding on my cheek, my lip. I had scratches all over me. And then the cop said, well, we have to take you away because you're twice her size and you might kill her. That one's still hard to sit with. From that moment on, where I was sitting in the cell in the Southport Watch House, I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I get full custody of my daughter, that my daughter is going to be safe, provided for, and secure for the rest of her life. Over the next year, I met my beautiful fiance, Rach. She became my rock. She helped me hold myself to higher standards because she demanded better standards for herself for the way that I was showing up. I tried to manipulate her. I tried to do all the same tactics that I did to everyone else, but Rach called me out. She said, you need to work on your insecurities. You need to go get help. You need to find therapy, do something, because if not, you're going to lose me because of the way that you treat me. And rightfully so. Good on her. She absolutely stood up for herself, and she held herself to such a fucking high standard. That is the reason for the RYSE movement. Rach held me to such a high standard to be able to hold myself to a higher standard to demand better fucking results from my life. So Rach and I get together. She holds me to a high standard. I start doing counseling, therapy. I start doing personal development, start reading books, audio books, all the rest of it. And then I get an anonymous phone call in 2016. It was like the 21st or 23rd of January 2016. Your daughter and ex are homeless living in their car. You need to step in and do something. That's the day that I took full custody. That was also the last day that my daughter ever saw her mother. From there, I'm not going to tell her story because she doesn't need any more spotlight on her and what she has done or how she's lived. However, she doesn't need to come back into our life. What happened, happened, and happened the way that it happened. Couldn't happen any other way because it didn't. From there, taking responsibility and 100% custody of my daughter has been one of the greatest things that's ever happened. I have my purpose in under my roof every night. I know she's safe. I know she's provided for. I know she's fed. She's having a bed to sleep in. She's got her toys. She's got love around her, always. From that point on, I made so many powerful decisions to raise my damn standards so high and expect better of myself as a man, as a father, as a business operator, as a personal trainer, as a partner, as just everything. Every aspect of my life elevated to the highest degree by holding myself to higher standards and demanding better results. I had enough with what I had been through. I had enough with the suffering. I had enough with the pain, the panic attacks, the smoking, everything that I did, enough. And that was it. That was where I drew a line in the sand. That year in 2016, 2017 was the most successful years that I've had in business. I just moved hell and high water. I did so much those years. Competed in bodybuilding, grew my personal training business, huge, employed a coach, employed a personal trainer underneath me. I did so much and I was so damn proud of what I did. So damn proud. 2017 came and went, massive results. I was doing well with fitness, with training, and being a father and being engaged in relationship. Rach was off at uni studying nursing, and things were awesome. We had Sophia. That was a nice big surprise. And then got to the end of 2017. I was like, I need to do more. Again, I'm elevating my standards because my life results, they were good, but I wanted more. I knew that I was built for more. I had more potential inside of me. So I went and studied. I did 20 grand's worth of personal development that year. Went and did NLP and hypnosis and all these different courses. Went to Melbourne for 2 weeks to go study and do the next step of those courses. I was moving and shaking. I was healing trauma and just figuring out who I was. I was understanding myself at such a deep level, also that I could help my daughter later down the track, because I knew everything that she experienced when she was a baby, the body holds the score. She's going to remember that. She's going to hold that inside of her body. So I need to have the tools and resources necessary, not only to heal myself and integrate myself, but to be able to make sure that I have the framework for her when she's ready, when she needs to go through it. 2018 was a huge year as well. 2019 happened. 2019 was a quieter year. There was more holding space for Rach to go off to uni, to do her pracs, and to just be with the family unit, be with Sophia and Ray, and take them off to kindy and school and these sorts of things. And I really put everything else for me on the back burner. I started training again. I had a bit of a back injury in 2017. I put on about 25 kilos of body fat. Physically, I fell into a depression. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I was doing really, really well. Really well. 2020 happened. Everyone knows what happened in there with the totalitarian shutdown of the world. I'm not going to get into that any further. But yeah, 2020 happened. I started working with another men's coaching company, did their program, really loved their program, fell in love with it. The work was such solid work. Learned more about myself, learned how to, integrate my shadow more and, work on purpose and core values and these sorts of things, and was really good. Got offered to work for them as the head coach role in that. Gave myself, I gave so much of myself to that business. And it's a shame what happened, but, like I said earlier, what happened and couldn't happen any other way, because it didn't. That's a nice little Peter Crone quote there for those that are playing at home. And then when that business dissolved and just turned to shit, I sat back and I'm like, what else can I do? I still really want to help men. I still want to show up as authentically vulnerable and transparent as much as possible, but I need a better container. What is the common denominator across my life when I finally decided that I deserve better? And that was I raised my standards. I expected better results, and you can't have better results unless you raise your standards. So if you've listened to this story and you can resonate with bits and pieces and, you know, my authentic, because this is 100% truth. Like, nothing I've said in here has been fabricated. This is exactly as I've experienced my life. If you can resonate with anything here and you can figure out that your results in life aren't what you want them to be, all you have to do is raise your standards. But you have to be very specific about what you're going to do about it after the fact. It's one thing to be able to look at your results and evaluate them, then to write down new standards, new behaviors, and what you plan to do. But the most important thing after you rise is go take fucking action. Do not sit back and wait for it to happen. There's no such thing as the law of attraction here. You can feel it inside and attract it emotionally to your body, but you need to act. You need to act like your life depends on it, because it does. You need to get out and do everything that you plan on doing in terms of your standards. Raise your standards by enacting your standards. That's how you change your results. That's what the RYSE movement's all about. It's about whatever happened in the past, happened. What happens now is up to you to determine. You raise your standards everywhere, you raise your results everywhere. And that's the game. It is probably the most meaningful thing in my life to go through all of the trauma, everything that I've gone through to get to here, to be able to help facilitate the change necessary and the transformation necessary in the fucking world through men raising your standards everywhere. I feel so called to this work to be able to help make the world a better place, because as a father, as everything that I've gone through, all the abuse, and recognizing what I'm here to do to help provide for my children the love, support, guidance, and the life that they need to have, that they deserve to have. In this weird, soft, PC culture world, with this woke mind virus running rampant, I can't sit back anymore. I have to start raising my standards even higher and helping other men raise their standards even higher, just so that they can make their families' lives the best possible they can. And that's it for today, guys. Sorry, I trauma dumped a little bit on you, but thank you so much for being here. Until we get into a little bit of teaching in episode 3. Until I see you next week, thank you and much love. Bye. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and much love.